If you're searching for the most valuable $quarter coin in the United States worth millions today, let's dive into the legendary treasures that collectors dream about. One of the rarest finds is the 1796 draped bust quarter, a historic mint coin with extremely low mintage, making pristine examples worth millions at major auctions. Another iconic rarity is the 1823 two-capped bust quarter, a famous overdate variety with only a handful known to exist, and these can reach multi-million-dollar values when they appear in elite collections. And don't forget the 1916 standing Liberty quarter, the key date of the series that commands massive prices due to its short production and incredible demand. These rare quarters prove that even the smallest coin can carry unbelievable fortune, and discovering one could change your life instantly. Coin number 1, the 1965 Washington $quarter from the United States, is one of the most searched, most collected, and most misunderstood coins in American numismatics. Today, we're exploring this iconic quarter in a full deep dive designed for collectors, investors, and anyone curious about rare US coins worth serious money. The 1965 quarter is one of the most talked about coins because of its transition year status, its minting history, its composition change, and the mysterious rare errors that can make ordinary-looking coins worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars. So let's take a full and detailed journey into every part of this coin, from its history to its value, varieties, minting details, and the rare errors you should look for in your pocket change. In 1965, the United States Mint made a historic decision that changed American coinage forever. Due to the rising cost of silver and widespread coin shortages, the Mint removed silver from the quarter and switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. That means every Washington quarter made from 1965 onward is no longer 90% silver, unlike earlier dates. This shift makes the 1965 quarter incredibly important, because it marks the very first year the Mint issued clad quarters. While most people know this change happened, many don't realize that the 1965 quarter also produced some of the most valuable transitional era coins ever discovered. These rare coins, struck on leftover silver planchets meant for 1964, can be worth thousands or more. The standard 1965 quarter has a copper core with a nickel outer layer, weighs 5.67 grams, and does not carry any mint mark. All 1965 quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which was responsible for producing more than 1.8 billion coins that year. This massive production means the majority of 1965 quarters you'll find today are common, yet there are certain high-grade examples and rare errors that collectors search for non-stop. If you're holding a 1965 quarter right now, don't dismiss it as ordinary. Condition, weight, and specific features can dramatically affect its value. One of the biggest questions collectors ask is how to tell the difference between a regular 1965 clad quarter and a rare 1965 silver transitional era quarter. A standard clad quarter has a visible copper line along the edge and weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver quarter should weigh around 6.25 grams and will show no copper on the edge. These silver transitional errors are extremely rare, and only a small number have ever been authenticated. Some examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars depending on grade and condition. Many people search their old pocket change and inherited coin jars hoping to find one of these legendary silver 1965 quarters. Beyond the transitional errors, the 1965 quarter also appears with striking errors such as double strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers, die breaks, clipped planchets, and struck-through errors. A missing clad layer on a 1965 quarter can make the coin appear copper on one side and is highly collectible. If you discover one of these dramatic mint errors in sharp condition, it can bring strong prices from serious collectors. Even more subtle errors like die cracks, die chips around the mint mark area, or machine doubling can bring premium interest if the coin has great eye appeal. Collectors pay close attention to high-grade 1965 quarters, especially coins graded mint state 65, 66, or 67. Because most 1965 quarters entered circulation immediately, finding one in pristine condition is not easy. Coins with bright luster, clean surfaces, and sharp strike details can be worth significantly more than worn examples. The highest graded 1965 quarters have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially when the coin is certified in a top-level grade. While most circulated 1965 quarters are only worth face value, uncirculated examples with no wear can be worth several dollars to several hundred depending on condition and rarity. The design of the 1965 Washington quarter remains the same iconic portrait created by John Flanagan. George Washington's profile appears on the obverse, while the reverse features the American eagle perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. Even though the design stayed the same, The metal composition change in 1965 makes this year unique in US coinage history. Collectors appreciate the beauty of the design, the history behind the coin, and the special significance of the silver-to-clad transition. When you analyze a 1965 quarter for value, start with the basics. First, check for wear. A heavily circulated coin has minimal collector value unless it has an error. Next, examine the luster and surfaces. A coin with little to no contact marks and strong shine is far more desirable to collectors. Then, weigh the coin if possible. A silver transitional error version will weigh more than the clad version and may even sound different when gently tapped. Look closely at the edges, the details of Washington's hair, the feathers of the eagle, and the rim to identify potential errors or unusual features. Another important factor is toning. Some 1965 quarters naturally develop beautiful rainbow or gold toning over decades of storage. Toned coins can bring higher prices, especially if the color patterns are attractive and original. Collectors often look for unique toning patterns that make a coin stand out among similar examples. While toning does not guarantee extra value, it enhances the desirability of a well-preserved 1965 quarter and can make it more collectible. As we explore the market demand for 1965 quarters, we see that collectors worldwide search for high-grade examples and rare errors from this transitional year. Online auctions, coin shows, and numismatic marketplaces frequently feature premium 1965 quarters that attract strong bidding. Transitional errors remain the holy grail for enthusiasts, with only a handful known to exist. These coins are so rare that even professional collectors consider them once-in-a-lifetime finds. For everyday collectors, the 1965 quarter represents an accessible but historically important coin. It's a perfect starting point for new collectors because it's easy to find in circulation, but also offers the thrill of potentially discovering a rare and valuable error. Whether you're searching through pocket change, inherited coin collections, or coin roll hunting boxes from the bank, the 1965 quarter is always a target worth checking carefully. In today's collecting world, knowledge is key. Understanding the difference between a standard circulation strike and a rare mint error can make all the difference in determining value. A coin that looks ordinary to the untrained eye may hide a rare feature that greatly increases its worth. That's why taking the time to learn about coin varieties, minting history, metal compositions, and production quirks can pay off. The 1965 Washington quarter is a perfect example of how a common coin can become a collector's treasure under the right circumstances. Coin number 2, the 1966 Washington quarter from the United States, is one of the most searched and discussed coins among collectors today. And in this video we are diving deep into everything you need to know about the 1966 quarter, its history, its value, its varieties, rare errors, and why collectors still hunt for this specific coin decades after it was minted. If you have a 1966 Washington quarter in your pocket change, your old collection, or your inherited stash, stay with me as we explore whether your coin could be worth far more than face value. Many people don't realize that quarters from the mid-1960s have a unique story tied to the nation's coin shortage and the major change in the silver content of American coinage. That story starts right here with the 1966 quarter, a coin that looks ordinary but carries a history of transition, scarcity in certain grades, and strong demand among collectors. To understand the 1966 quarter, we have to look at its background. Before 1965, Washington quarters were made of 90% silver. But in 1965, due to rising silver prices and massive hoarding, the United States Mint removed silver from dimes and quarters entirely, switching to the clad copper-nickel composition that we still use today. The 1966 Washington quarter is one of the early clad-era coins and one of the first non-dated mint mark years in modern U.S. coin history. For the years 1965, 1966, and 1967, the Mint removed mint marks to discourage collectors from hoarding coins during the coin shortage. That means all 1966 quarters look the same regardless of whether they were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, though the majority were struck in Philadelphia. And because mint marks were removed, identifying where a specific coin came from is nearly impossible. This makes the year unique and adds a layer of mystery and collector appeal. Now when it comes to mintage, over 821 million quarters were struck in 1966, making the coin common in circulation. But mintage alone does not determine value. The real significance lies in the condition of the coin, the strike quality, and most importantly, the rare errors and varieties that can turn an ordinary 1966 quarter into a valuable collectible. Even though this is a clad coin, meaning it contains no silver, certain high-grade examples, especially those in mint state 66, mint state 67, and rarely mint state 68, can be worth far more than face value. Collectors always seek the highest grade possible, and 1966 is a year where perfectly preserved coins are surprisingly difficult to find because the production quality in the mid-1960s was not as refined as later decades. Let's talk about the design. The obverse features President George Washington, a design introduced in 1932 by John Flanagan and still used for many decades. On the reverse, the familiar heraldic eagle is perched with wings spread, a symbol of American strength and heritage. Even though the 1966 quarter may appear simple and familiar, tiny details like the strike sharpness on Washington's hair, the clarity of the eagle's feathers, and the overall luster can dramatically influence its collector value. One of the biggest reasons collectors love the 1966 Washington quarter is the potential for rare mint errors. These errors are what can transform a normal clad quarter into a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Some of the most valuable errors include the off-center strike, where part of the design is missing due to misalignment during minting. Depending on how off-center the strike is, especially with more than 50% missing and with the date still visible, these coins can command premium prices. Another valuable error is the double die, which happens when the design is imprinted more than once on the die, creating doubled features on the lettering or portrait. While 1966 does not have as many well-documented double dies as earlier silver quarters, there are still minor double die varieties that collectors hunt for, especially on the motto "In God We Trust" or the reverse lettering. Misstruck planchets and clipped planchets are also known for this year. These types of errors can make a 1966 quarter much more valuable than a standard example. Another key factor for value is the condition of the coin. Most 1966 quarters have heavy wear from circulation, which means they grade at the lower end of the scale, from good to fine. These grades do not carry much premium. But if you find a coin with minimal wear, strong luster, sharp details, and no major scratches or contact marks, it could be considered mint state. Mint state coins are where the real value begins. For example, a 1966 Washington quarter in mint state 65 might be worth a few dollars. Mint state 66 brings higher value. Mint state 67, which is rare due to the production quality of that time, can bring significantly more. And a mint state 68 example, nearly the highest grade possible, can sell for hundreds or even more if the quality is exceptional. Collectors prize these high-grade coins because they represent the best surviving examples of a very large mintage year. Another interesting part of the 1966 quarter story involves the coin shortage of the mid-60s. Because coin hoarding was so widespread, the US Mint operated around the clock to keep up with demand. As a result, many coins, including the 1966 quarter, were produced with less attention to precision. This is why strong strikes and clean surfaces are harder to find today. When collectors search through rolls or bags of old quarters, they are looking for those rare survivors that escaped the heavy wear and rough handling of the era. Even though the coin has no silver content, its historical significance makes it a must-have for anyone collecting Washington quarters or clad-era US coins. Another factor collectors look for is the coin's luster. The way the light reflects off the surface of a clad coin can reveal how well it was preserved. A brilliant, satiny luster with minimal marks is a good sign. Some 1966 quarters have a weak strike, especially on Washington's cheek and hair, as well as the eagle's breast feathers. A strong strike adds value. So when evaluating a 1966 quarter, you want to examine the overall clarity of all design elements. There is also a common misconception that every old quarter is valuable, but this is not necessarily true. The 1966 quarter is valuable mainly when it has errors or exceptional condition. Still, millions of collectors enjoy holding onto this coin because it represents the transitional period of US coinage and the early years of the clad composition. When beginners enter the coin hobby, the 1966 quarter is often one of the first coins they learn about because it bridges the gap between the silver era and modern circulating coinage. Whether you found this coin in a coin jar, an inherited collection, or simply while searching through pocket change, it remains fascinating because of its story and the possibility of rare varieties hidden among ordinary examples. Let's take a moment to talk about what makes a 1966 quarter valuable on today's market. Coins with dramatic mint errors, especially off-center strikes, double strikes, partial collars, and broad strikes, can sell for anywhere from $50 to several $100 depending on the severity of the error. Coins in mint state 67 or higher can command strong premiums due to their rarity in top condition. And even though this coin has no silver, collectors prize it for the role it played in stabilizing the coin supply during the 1960s. Coin No. 3, the 1967 Washington quarter dollar from the United States, is one of the most interesting coins from the late 1960s, a time when America was undergoing major changes in its coinage system, its economy, and its historical direction. In this video, we will take a deep, detailed, and engaging look at the 1967 Washington quarter, exploring its history, design, features, minting background, era varieties, value trends, collectible appeal, and why so many collectors continue to search for high-grade examples today. If you're a coin collector, a beginner in numismatics, or simply someone curious about valuable United States coins, this 1967 quarter video will give you everything you need to know. The story of the 1967 Washington quarter begins with the Coinage Act of 1965, a major turning point in American numismatic history. The United States Mint removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters because the rising price of silver made it impossible to continue producing coins at a profit. By 1967, the U.S. Mint was still adjusting to the new copper-nickel clad composition, and this period produced some coins with unique traits, strike issues, and minting inconsistencies. The 1967 quarter is part of that transitional era, and because of that, collectors give it special attention. Every 1967 quarter was minted without a mint mark, regardless of whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. This happened because from 1965 to 1967 the U.S. Mint suspended mint marks to discourage coin hoarding during the coin shortage of the mid-1960s. That means all 1967 quarters look the same on the surface, but individual coins can still vary widely in terms of strike quality, luster, and preservation state. These differences are important when determining the value of a 1967 quarter. The design of the 1967 Washington quarter remains the same iconic style first used in 1932. The obverse features the portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. You can notice the classic details in Washington's hair, the strong outline of his profile, and the inscription Liberty across the top. Below the portrait is the date 1967, and just above the date is the motto In God We Trust. Although millions of Americans handle quarters every day, few take the time to appreciate the detailed artistry of this timeless portrait. The 1967 quarter is one of the many examples that keep this classic design alive in American numismatic history. On the reverse of the 1967 quarter, you can find the heraldic eagle, another John Flanagan creation. The eagle, with its widespread wings, perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizes strength and readiness. Beneath the eagle is an olive branch representing peace. Around the design, you see the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar. The blend of power and peace in this design has helped the Washington quarter become one of the most recognizable coins in the world. The composition of the 1967 quarter is copper-nickel clad, also known as clad coinage. It consists of a pure copper core bonded between two layers of a copper-nickel alloy. This gives the coin its distinctive silvery appearance but without containing silver. Each 1967 quarter weighs 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. Although it does not contain silver, some collectors confuse worn 1967 quarters for silver pieces because older quarters, especially those heavily circulated, can take on a slightly different tone. However, number 1967 quarters were minted in silver for circulation. One of the major reasons the 1967 Washington quarter is still discussed by collectors today is because of the sheer number minted. More than 1.5 billion 1967 quarters were struck, making it one of the highest mintage quarters of the decade. That means that most circulated examples today are extremely common and usually worth only face value. But as we know in coin collecting, the condition and specific characteristics of a coin can make all the difference. Even with high mintage numbers, rare high-grade examples, error coins, and coins preserved in exceptional condition can command strong prices. High-grade 1967 quarters are especially sought after because the minting in the late 1960s often produced soft strikes and inconsistent luster. Finding a coin with sharp detail, clean surfaces, and full mint state brightness can be much harder than people expect. Mint state 65 or higher examples of the 1967 quarter are significantly more valuable than circulated coins. The best examples, those graded MS67 or MS68, can bring impressive prices at auctions. While most collectors know the 1967 quarter is common, only a small fraction were preserved carefully enough to achieve these top-tier grades. Another interesting part of collecting the 1967 Washington quarter is exploring its error varieties. Even though there is no official list of rare major errors for this coin, several types of mint errors have appeared in the market over the years. These include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, double dies, and struck-through errors. A strong, clearly visible double die or dramatic off-center strike can bring very strong premiums. Many collectors enjoy searching through rolls of old coins hoping to find these types of errors, and the 1967 quarter continues to be a popular target. The 1967 SMS, Special Mint Set, coins also interest collectors. Although not proof coins, the 1967 SMS quarters were specially produced with higher quality and more polished finishes than standard circulation strikes. These sets were minted in San Francisco and sold to collectors, replacing proof sets during this period. SMS quarters often display sharper details and smoother surfaces, making them more desirable. High-grade SMS quarters can reach notable values, especially those with flawless appearance and cameo-like contrast. When it comes to value, most circulated 1967 quarters are worth face value, simply 25 cents. However, the real value in this coin appears when you look at high-grade mint state examples and SMS pieces. Some top-graded coins have reached hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition and rarity of the grade. The coin market always changes, and collectors continue to pay strong premiums for standout examples. Searching coin rolls, checking old collections, or reviewing pocket change can still yield interesting specimens. Coin number 4, and we will explore the history, composition, minting details, errors, varieties, value ranges, and everything collectors look for when examining a 1972 Washington quarter. Whether you are a beginner coin collector, an advanced numismatist, or simply someone curious about United States quarter dollars, this deep dive into the 1972 quarter will give you everything you need to know to identify value, rarity, and hidden treasures in your pocket change. The 1972 Washington quarter is part of the long-running Washington quarter series minted from 1932 through 1998 before the United States Mint began producing the 50-state quarters program. The 1972 quarter is especially interesting because it falls within the era of copper-nickel clad coinage, replacing the 90% silver composition that ended in 1964. Understanding this shift helps collectors recognize why certain dates in the 1970s, including the 1972 quarter, have fascinating strike characteristics, die varieties, and potential valuable error coins. The 1972 Washington quarter was minted at 3 locations: Philadelphia, which produced the majority of the coins and has no mint mark, Denver, which carries the D mint mark, and San Francisco, which produced proof coins with the S mint mark. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of 1972 quarters, making it the most common of the 3. Despite its large mintage, collectors especially focus on strike quality, luster, and die conditions because Philadelphia coins can vary significantly in sharpness. The Denver Mint also produced a large quantity of coins, but Denver coins often have better strikes, making high-grade examples desirable. The San Francisco Mint issued proof coins for collectors, and these mirror finish pieces are often in excellent condition, though grading still matters greatly for maximum value. When evaluating a 1972 quarter, one of the key aspects is its composition. All business strike 1972 Washington quarters are made of a copper core clad with a copper-nickel alloy. This clad composition results in a distinct lighter color compared to the silver quarters minted before 1965. The weight of a standard clad 1972 quarter is 5.67 grams, and the diameter remains the familiar 24.3 millimeters. Because collectors often find that circulated 1972 quarters show wear quickly, high-grade uncirculated examples become more appealing. That is why uncirculated and mint state coins can reach strong values depending on strike and preservation. One of the biggest topics for collectors searching for 1972 Washington quarters is the existence of valuable errors and varieties. These errors can transform a common quarter into a rare and valuable collectible. Some of the most desirable 1972 quarter errors include off-center strikes, broad strikes, double die obverse errors, die cracks, clipped planches, and missing clad layer errors. Off-center 1972 quarters are extremely popular because the degree of misalignment directly affects value. A 5% off-center strike might bring a modest premium, while a dramatic 50% off-center strike can be worth significantly more. Broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without a collar, create a wider-than-usual appearance and can also carry strong premiums. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1972 double die obverse, though it is not as prominent as double dies from other years. Collectors carefully examine the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date for signs of doubling. Even mild doubling can create collectible interest. Die cracks and die breaks also popular among fans of unique minting anomalies. These appear as raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin, often giving character to an otherwise ordinary quarter. Clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a misfed blank, are another valuable error type for the 1972 quarter. Missing clad layer errors, in which the outer nickel layer fails to bond correctly, can expose the reddish copper core and are highly collectible. Another important aspect of the 1972 quarter's value lies in grading. The grading scale ranges from poor to mint state 70, with the majority of circulated 1972 quarters falling into lower circulated grades. Collectors searching for investment-worthy examples look for sharp details on George Washington's hair, clean fields free of scratches, and strong luster on uncirculated pieces. Mint state 65 and higher examples are especially desirable. While the typical 1972 quarter in circulated condition may hold only small value, high-grade examples certified in top condition can command impressive prices from collectors who appreciate the difficulty of finding pristine pieces from this era. Proof versions from the San Francisco Mint exhibit frosted devices and mirror-like fields. A deep cameo or ultra cameo finish is especially desirable in grading. Although the 1972 Washington quarter is not a rare coin in circulation, the real excitement lies in the potential to uncover valuable treasure in everyday change. Many collectors enjoy searching rolls of quarters from the bank, hoping to find well-preserved or error variety coins. The thrill of discovering an off-center strike, a clipped planchette, or sharply struck high-grade quarter keeps the 1972 quarter relevant among the coin-collecting community. Because millions of these coins were produced, there is always a possibility of encountering one with an unusual defect or superb surface preservation. The design of the 1972 Washington quarter carries the classic portrait of George Washington created by sculptor John Flanagan. The obverse features Washington facing left, with the word Liberty above his head and the motto "In God We Trust" to the left. The date 1972 sits below the bust. On the reverse side, you find the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows, with olive branches below symbolizing peace. The inscription United States of America arches above the eagle, with E pluribus unum between the wings, and $quarter along the bottom. Because the Washington quarter design remained consistent for decades, collectors often study subtle differences between years, which makes each version of the coin, including the 1972 quarter, an important part of numismatic history. This 1972 quarter is also interesting because it comes from a time when the United States Mint was still adjusting to clad coinage. Earlier clad quarters from the late 1960s had strike issues and weak details, especially on the eagle's feathers. By 1972, improvements were noticeable but still inconsistent, causing variations that collectors enjoy comparing. Finding a sharply struck 1972 coin with bold details on the obverse and reverse can set it apart from typical circulated examples. The steps in Washington's hair, the definition in the eagle's wings, and the clarity of the inscriptions all matter when determining grade and value.